Hey, how's it guys? Welcome back to Project Drive SA. It's been a little bit, but I've got a new car for you guys. Well, not necessarily a new car. We've got a 2013 Hyundai i20. This is the facelift, so it's the same chassis code I think as the 2011, but just with a few visual changes and interior upgrades that we'll talk about. This is the motion variant, which means that it's the lowest spec, so you don't obviously get all the frills. Anyway, I'll also be making a comparison to the higher level variant, which actually offers you quite a lot more car for quite a good bargain these days. Anyway, I'm sure back in the day the disparity between the prices was a lot more, but let's get into it. So as we can see now, moving to the front of the car, this is a 2013 special, of course, so you don't get anything fancy like new age LEDs or anything, or matrix LED systems like on the new Audis and all the rest of it. They are just standard halogen high beams and regular beams, and this has the optional fog lights, so that is something interesting because a lot of the features that you would get on this lower end motion are actually optional features. Coming around to the wheels of the car themselves, we can see that we have got hubcaps, and we've got Hyundai style hubcaps that have I think been popularized by other brands now. I'm not entirely sure if they're the first ones to do it, but I like the fact that they integrate the hubcap quite nicely into the wheel itself. So these are obviously steelies, but you've got so it's actually obviously bolted onto the wheel itself, so that also makes it easy for people to not steal your freaking hubcaps because they'll just come straight off like that. These are, I believe, 175 standard section tires. These might even just be a little bit smaller than that. I know these are economy tires, so the actual tread might not be as wide, but that is what they come on all around as standard. So as we can see, we've got standard fold-in mirrors that actually just fold in manually, nothing crazy, as this is an economy car, so you haven't even got an integrated indicator there. So this has got standard locking mechanisms, of course, because it is an economy car, so if something should go wrong, it's nice and obvious where your key point is. This car, thankfully though, does come standard with a remote access, so you don't obviously always have to stick your key in, but it is obviously very easy to do so. These windows also have come tinted. I don't know if that's a region specific option, but in this specific car they have them, which is actually quite nice on a sunny day like this. Coming back, we have a very similarly sized passenger door, and I'll show you the interior now. It's quite spacious back there, which is quite nice, and we come back to the exact same identical wheel as the front there. Moving on, we've got a standard locking fuel filler cap, nothing special. These are something that definitely did change with the facelift though, so you can see you've got different style lights. These are, I think, the regular braking lights, and then these are your evening lamps over here, and then of course you've got your indicator, and you've got your reverse lamp there. So what a lot of car manufacturers do, and what Hyundai have also decided to do, is integrate their rear fog lamp, which is obviously, you see it's got a little red cone over it there, into the other reverse lights. So obviously when your fog lamps come on, so will this, to give you higher visibility. Alright, so opening the boot, which is obviously accessed by clicking your key fob unlock again, will access the boot. So what we've got here, which is quite nice, we've got obviously all the paraphernalia that my mate's left in the car, but you've got a full size spare, which is quite nice, and then obviously your emergency visor kit over there. It's obviously cloth, nothing special. The boot lid lip is actually not too high, you can easily carry things in and out of here. The boot space, I believe, is around 280 liters, so it's quite a lot. You can obviously fold the seats down here in a 40-60 split. If you want to through load stuff through the 40, you can do, and I do believe they fold quite flat, so that does make through loading quite easy. Another nice standard feature, you got a little looky over there. Check that, I love that kind of standard feature. And another thing they've also got here is a little bag hook, so you can obviously, your shopping doesn't rummage around everywhere. So yeah, anyway, that's the boot. Okay, now we enter the rear passenger area. So this, of course, is the motion, so it's all cloth upholstery. I believe you can get leather upholstery even in the motion, from what I've read, but I think it's more of a when you get to the higher spec models, that's kind of thing comes standard. So behind the rear passenger you don't get any storage, but interestingly enough in this seat you do. So I'm not entirely sure if that's a region specific thing, when the steering wheel's on the other side of the car. But anyway, so I digress. We've got window winders in the back here for the motion, and then of course you get the high spec model, which has got electric windows all around. You have this kind of synthetic metal plastic here. It feels kind of alright. It's all very cheap scratchy plastics, those you would expect in a car like this. I'm actually going to open the window myself. As I said, it's a very hot day. What's really nice though is they do wind all the way down. That is a big prop. You've of course got your oh crap handle all around except for the driver, and otherwise storage is pretty limited back here. In fact, you've got one of the 4 speakers, and then you've got a little cubby here, but that's also going to be used by people in the front. So yeah, things are pretty limited back here, but everyone's got their own adjustable headrest. The cloth interior is quite nice. It is a true 5-seater if you've got a small friend but otherwise everything's quite cool, and I'm sure you've got your you got your ISOFIX points there for child seats. So yeah, that's pretty much the back, and I'm going to move to the front. Okay, moving to the front, to the driver's side of the aforementioned Hyundai 1.2. is everything that you've got in here is almost a standard feature. So you've got, you know, safety features like who's not wearing their seatbelt, which everybody hates the beeping seatbelt man, but he's going to keep you safe. It obviously tells you whether your passenger airbag is off as well. So there are a lot of safety features that come in this car. However, the higher trim model comes with quite substantially more airbags, and it's got a higher Euro NCAP rating than this, but this already has a Euro NCAP rating 5. I think that was the designation. I don't know those designations well, so if someone can correct me in the comments if I'm saying that correctly, that would be appreciated. You've got a little cubby for change and stuff, a little stowage there. You've got, my mate's been eating a pie in here, but you've of course got some I/O, so you've got your aux connection, USB connection, but you don't have Bluetooth as standard. So that's something that will, you know, you can get adapters and stuff like that, but it's really nice to have that thing standard. It was an option that wasn't done on this car. As you can see, we've got quite a basic gauge cluster over here. Of course, we've got limited fuel, so I'm not going to be ripping it too much today, but there's also a very nicely laid out, you know, it's just standard dials, right? You got your tachometer on the left and your speedometer on the right. Optimistically 220 k's an hour is reading over there, and the rest of it is much like the back, except you have a standard got electric windows, which is quite cool. They go up and down really fast, to be honest, which is also really nice. Also cloth interior, very comfortable seats. Cubby hole is also quite big, and yeah, it just tells you your distance, the weather outside, stuff like that. You can obviously reset your trip, and you can go up and down between various things, I think. Or that's probably just changing the time, to be honest. But alright, you didn't think I was going to forget about the engine, did you? I'm going to mention a bit more about what makes this engine interesting in the spec review, but as you can see, it is a standard dual overhead cam 1.2 litre or 1.25 litre inline 4-cylinder. Very basic, very standard. All of this is of course as standard as you can possibly get. I think it's had a service recently, so it's looking quite pretty, to be honest. Yeah, all very standard, all very standard Hyundai in here. But as you can see, everything actually falls really easily to hand. I think this looks like more of a mechanic's dream. There's no engine cover, none of that silly neutrals rubbish. But yeah, that's pretty much that. So let's see what it can do after the spec review. Okay, you now join me for the obligatory spec review. So as I mentioned, we're driving a 2013 Hyundai i20 1.2 Motion. The average mileage of this car is running 5.6 liters per 100 k's, and that's not bad. I think we'll see what it gets now if the trip computer tells us, but that's pretty average for cars like this of this era. Nothing to scoff at, but also nothing to be like, whoa, you know, that's really impressive. I think the best mileage of all of them was either the Polo TSI, although that's a much newer engine with a newer architecture car. And you've also got obviously the 2014 Renault Sandero I did, but that's just a very efficient engine. You know, it's got one less cylinder, it's got a turbo. This is obviously a naturally aspirated engine as well. So the top speed of this car, it's a whopping 168 k's an hour. So also not fast, but you're not getting fast when you're getting in this car. And 12.7 seconds to 0 to 100. So also really dead average. Nothing to scoff at also, but nothing to be impressed by. It is a 5-speed manual. That's something as well that I was going to mention. So if you get the higher spec model of this car, not only do you get standard alloy wheels, you get 6 airbags. I think you get a nice interior. You generally will find them with leather interiors. I think it was an option, but you generally find them with leather interiors. and just, you know, Bluetooth, stuff like that, and then obviously electric windows all around, and then you get a 6-speed manual, which will inevitably have an impact on your fuel economy as well, and then you get a 1.4 liter engine with more power. So it's a better car, and for the money you can get them these days, I'll, you know, leave the conclusion until the end before I drive it, because this might drive good enough to defend itself, but we'll see. So the maximum power is 64 kilowatts, also dead average, 86 horsepower for my American friends, and that's made at 5,500 RPM. So you do kind of have to rev the piss out of it to get there, but you won't be doing that most of the time anyway. So 121 newton meters of torque at 4,000 RPM. That's a surprising stat, that the torque max should be at such a high RPM. I was expecting it to be a little bit lower than that, even though it's a naturally aspirated engine. The ground clearance is about 150 millimeters, so not bad. Also pretty damn average, not too low though as well, so you can get over most humps and bumps. And the curb weight, this must be dry. 970 kilograms is quite light, not like light, but you know, quite light. So I imagine maybe give or take add 40, 50, 60 kilograms to that, you know, with all the liquids and fuels. So its boot space is 295 liters. I'll correct myself from earlier. And then of course when you fold all of it flat, it goes to 1,060 liters with all the seats flat. That's also decent, I would say. Definitely better than the Polo I reviewed. If I go back here to the, well, not to the Land Cruiser, but even just the Renault, I mean, it's pretty similar, but it is a little bit better. And then of course standard fuel tank, 45 liters. So without further ado, let's get to the drive. The suspension is actually really well engineered. I like it. It seems to absorb stuff better than other cars in its class, namely, so my car, the Ford Figo for instance, which you get, I really do think you can get them for similar money if you look hard enough, because they're both on McPherson struts if I'm correct. So that means that this is clearly just a newer architecture car. You know, that Figo is based on the old Fiesta, old Fiesta now. And what you get is just a much better ride. It's obviously not hot hatch specs, or I don't know, I don't think you'll be having that much fun, to be honest. You'll be tossing and turning. These seats are quite supportive, but they're not gonna obviously hold you in for too long, and they're not that breathable, so you will probably end up sweating. On a hot day like this, just talking about the AC and all the amenities, everything falls really nicely to hand. The switchgear feels really high quality. The steering wheel's obviously like a rubberized fake leather. It doesn't really feel any different to most of these cars, but the AC needs to be regassed in this car, so I'm not gonna give it a fair assessment. But right now it's not blowing cold at all. The NVH, you know, all the noise and stuff that you hear outside of the car, for me it's fairly impressive, that you can't really hear what else is going on around you. Let me quickly do a pull here. Hold on. So we're starting to move. 4,000 comes in, and there's 60. So as you can see, it's really not a quick car. The engine makes a very 4-cylinder sound. The throttle mapping's pretty good. The clutch is an on-off switch, I'll be honest. It's the same problem I had with the Kia that I drove, and that's obviously coming from the same company. The gearbox is just as good, if not better, than that Kia Picanto. This is obviously a later model car. Same, it's probably a very similar 5-speed to what you'll find in there. But yeah, the clutch is cuck. Sorry, excuse me. Like, it's just, I don't know what they were thinking. There's no real pickup point. You kind of feel it immediately. I feel like people must burn through these clutches pretty quickly, in all honesty. The steering is, it's quite light, but it's also definitely that EPS unit, that electric power steering unit that I used in the Kia Picanto. So it's kind of uncertain. This is the beginning of EPS units, you know. They're not great, but they serve a purpose, right? This car is meant to be a commuter's car. It's not meant to be like high feel sports car where you're ripping it around, really needing everything like texture through the steering wheel. It's just not that kind of car, really. So it's actually okay. I'll give it a pass because it just, you know, it makes things light and easy. Visibility is very good, excellent. In fact, I love these big mirrors, and I love the fact that you've got a nice big view out. You've got loads of different cars that might offer you better value in other areas, but for safety they clearly took a lot of consideration into it, which is really good. the problem I have with this car is that it's oh my goodness, okay, I just went through a very big ditch there. I might edit that out. So its bigger brother, its bigger sibling, which is exactly the same car, right? You can probably get for maybe just over 10,000 more in some cases, with similar kilometers and similar conditions from what I was seeing on cars like Koza. Those prices may obviously change, but if you can get, you know, it's got a 6-speed manual, 6 airbags, it's almost like a more honest version of what this car was really aiming to be. And now, you know, it's a used car, so those prices just actually get closer and closer toward each other. And, you know, obviously there's many of these in South Africa. So if you are able to find, you know, a car that's got basically all the things that make this car good, and just make it better, you'll ultimately be scoring, especially because it comes with things like you would need in the modern age, like Bluetooth and stuff like that. I know you don't need it, but if you're getting a car like this, it's probably because you want it for practicality, you want it to be comfortable, and you want it to be usable every day. And for me, Bluetooth makes your car usable, you know, hands-free calling, stuff like that. And also, of course, you know, music. As I said, this sound system's pretty average, but it does the trick. It's really not bad. Not like the Polo Vivo that I did, the 2014 one. The Glide, it's called the Glide. Get that one, seriously, because this car is great. It's a brilliant commuter car, and for the money and the reliability, you know, Hyundai has also got extensive warranty. They back their cars. People really have seemed to adopt them in South Africa as essentially a second Toyota. I don't want to say that because people are going to lose their minds and be like, it's not a Toyota. It's not a Toyota, that's true. But the reliability standard of this car is very high, and no one will be disappointed in buying one of these with a 6th gear ratio, higher safety standards, and better amenities. So yeah, I think that's why I end this video. I'm going to enjoy the rest of the day in the pool now because it is absolutely cooking in here. And yeah guys, thanks for over 150 subscribers. I have to say I'm extraordinarily really grateful for such a great fan base. Let me look you all in the eye. And I didn't even ever expect it to get this far with these many videos. So hooray, and hopefully I'll be getting something very special for you guys soon again. But anyway, cheers for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers guys.